Thanks, Rob, and good to talk to everyone. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit. Medial, of course, from the media side, the streaming side is built on top of Wowza technology for both live and VOD streaming. And some of the things that Wowza has been used across a variety of industries, and specifically today, we're focusing on education, and we have a range of educational customers globally. So not just in England and across Europe, but truly across the world. And a lot of them are using Medial software to actually take the Wowza functionality, streaming functionality, and of course build a scalable kind of content management system, a link with LCMS systems like Moodle and Blackboard, as you guys know. And then what we've seen a lot of growth with in the last couple of years within education specifically is finding new ways to actually create distance learning, new ways to support live events, new ways to support kind of ancillary streaming needs that are coming from universities. A good example of this is the University of Oregon, which is well known for their sports programs on the west coast of America. And last year they were already a Wowza Streaming Engine customer, which is our perpetual software, our kind of deployable software that sits inside of Medial. But they had a need for streaming events for some of their tennis programs and some other minor league sport programs that needed to scale to larger audiences. And that's one of the kind of workflows we're going to talk about today, is how Medial and Wowza's are working together to create kind of scalable options for universities who maybe only have a couple of on-premises streaming servers, but still need to scale to larger audiences, either on the public internet or to other campuses. So that's one of the workflows. And then one of the other workflows I'm going to talk about a little bit is virtual reality and 360 streaming. So we've seen a lot of growth at Wowza across the industries that deploy Wowza, but also within EDU to create kind of new ways to learn, new ways to educate, new ways to communicate with students and engage students. And with Wowza, there are some we're working hand in hand with 360 camera manufacturers, 360 encoder manufacturers, and as well on the playback side with the players like JW Player that's integrated inside of Medial. They're coming out with a 360 player that Medial is going to be implementing into the software in the near future, and also with mobile clients. So these can be iOS and Android devices where you want to do that. So I'll touch on that and touch on the workflow that's involved with how to enable virtual reality and 360 streaming from start to finish using Wowza and Medial to create that kind of turnkey workflow. And then another place where we're seeing a lot of growth is, and with Medial specifically, with the Media Live application, it's developed on top of the Wowza GoCoder SDK, which is our mobile encoder. And that allows you and your students and your professors and your customers internally at your universities to really use their mobile devices to capture content, whether it be a live event or respond to particular assignments. Students can pick up their own phone, which they all own, and engage with the Medial system powered by the GoCoder SDK on the mobile side and Wowza as the streaming server, and then of course integrated with Medial. So this workflow has become very popular, and Periscope is actually, as you guys may be familiar with them, they're a Wowza customer, and that core functionality that Periscope has used is what Medial has leveraged to create their Media Live workflow. So we'll talk a little bit about the workflow here as well. And then this is kind of the idea of how to scale with Wowza and inside of Medial. So the idea when you buy Medial with Wowza inside, it comes with one Wowza server, but sometimes there's a need to scale to multiple campuses, to other universities, to the public internet, and all those different workflows for both live and VOD streaming can be enabled with additional Wowza licenses. So we'll touch on that briefly as well. So what I'm going to do is, I'm a big fan of demos, so I kind of want to show some of these workflows. And I'll start with what I think is probably the most useful use case for a lot of universities, which is how to scale and extend your reach. So this is our webpage, and I'll pass these links on to Rob, and he can follow up with these after the session. But some of the common use cases that we're seeing for scaling are concerts and events. UCL, where you guys are at today, as well as a lot of other customers, have a lot of very notable guest speakers who come in and speak. And they have lunch learning sessions, tech sessions, things like that. Scaling that to large audiences. Boston University in the US had the Dalai Lama, I think it was last year, and they're a Wowza customer, and they were able to scale to over 1 million concurrent users. If you were trying to do that with just your own on-premises server, it would crash your network, it would crash your server. So you need to have those scaling options in place. So the way that we can do that with Wowza and with Medial as well is you can do a live broadcast from your campus. So let's say it's the UCL campus where you guys are sitting today, and you're doing a live broadcast, you're capturing the camera, encoding it, and then pushing it into your Wowza server that sits inside your Medial application. What you can do there, of course, is you can stream that within your campus. So you can stream that to a student that's sitting there inside the campus on that local network. You can also stream on a wide area network to another Wowza server that could sit, let's say, at a campus in Manchester, or a campus in New York, or a campus in another location that has another Wowza server that can ingest that stream and then restream that out to local users, virtual classrooms, and so on. When you think about kind of the business use cases here, this gives you a way to potentially monetize this content, to sell content into other universities. If you're creating rich premium content, whether it be guest speaker series or particular professors or classes that aren't offered elsewhere, enabling this kind of a workflow really opens up new business opportunities from a university perspective. And then the same goes for the on-demand side. Wowza can record an archive on this origin server and then be able to play those on-demand files to remote students through the same workflow. In the case of Boston University with this the Dalai Lama, what they were able to do is actually push from their local origin server into Wowza Streaming Cloud. And we're working on this functionality with MEDIAL to actually enable this, what we call a stream target push, into our public cloud solution. And that the backbone of that from a CDN, from a content delivery network perspective, is built on Akamai. Akamai being the world's largest CDN, we've created some deep integration at the engineering level with Wowza and Akamai to make this a very simple process to push this into the cloud and scale that to a global audience. The benefit to this too is that this isn't just a server that you could spin up in one particular geography or in another. This is the Akamai CDN, which has endpoints in all of the major ISPs across the globe. So it truly gives you global reach, creating kind of better redundancy, lower latency, and more reach to get to all that audience. So just to give you an idea of how this works, I'm going to jump into, and I just want to verify, Rob, can you see my screen okay? Perfect. So this is probably a poor example. This is actually an IP camera, and it's at our office in Golden, Colorado, where it's still nighttime and the day after Thanksgiving, so there's nobody there. But what you can see here is we've connected to this IP camera, and you can see the incoming bit rate, the actual outbound bit rate, kind of some data on that. So this is our cloud solution, and we're working with MEDIAL we have kind of developer APIs that allow you to integrate with this into a product, and we're working with the MEDIAL engineers to create a very easy UI and a very easy workflow to create this kind of a workflow that we're going to see today. Today we're inside the Wowza Streaming Cloud UI, but of course with Rob and his team we can work on creating that usability inside of their product as part of the roadmap. So just to give you an idea, to start from scratch, I have my own Wowza server here. So this is what you get when you install MEDIAL with Wowza. You can actually touch the Wowza license yourself, come in here and look at the use cases, how many connections there are, what the usage is on your particular server. If I come into one of my live applications, this is a particular application that I have with several incoming streams. You can see I have about 10 concurrent streams. And one of these streams is actually this same camera that I'm actually grabbing locally. So if I pull this up, this is an RTSP camera that could sit on my local network. Or let's say I'm using Wirecast or OBS or another software encoder. I could be pushing this into MEDIAL, which has Wowza running behind the scenes. I could be transcoding this locally, creating those adaptive bitrate streams, and then pushing this out to Wowza Streaming Cloud. So you can see here I can actually pull up my test players and view the same stream that I have running in the cloud. So if I hit start, I can now see that stream playing back on my through my interface here. Now what I'll show you is this stream target functionality is the ability to create a new target in the cloud. And when I add a new stream target, Wowza is very, very platform agnostic. We can work with a lot of the world's leading CDNs. We can push to YouTube Live. We have now integration with Facebook Live, with Periscope is soon to come on our roadmap. So all these different social media sites, all these video platforms, or to your own CDN account. A big problem and kind of a hurdle that a lot of universities have to get over is the commitment to actually get a contract with these CDNs is quite large. So to get a budget and to even know what kind of bandwidth you need to negotiate on a yearly basis can be quite challenging. And that's the reason we came out with this Wowza Streaming Cloud product. Is it's built on the same CDN that Akamai has, but it's built in a pay-as-you-go model. And what we can do is we can just choose that Wowza Streaming Cloud option, enter a connection code. And all we do in here is we can add a new live stream. You can select what region this is in. So here we can type in MEDIAL. Let's say today I'm actually streaming, or this particular camera is streaming from the West Coast, from Oregon in the US. So I can actually choose Oregon. And then here I can choose Wowza Streaming Engine as one of my options. And this allows you to stream directly to the Wowza CDN. Now this interface is one that we're working with MEDIAL to actually implement inside the product, so it'd be a very, very simple wizard to kind of get you up and running and set up. And that will allow you to use the MEDIAL interface to administer the entire account and this whole functionality. So I'll go ahead and go through these steps. I'm just going to click on Finish. And what Wowza Streaming Cloud does, it will generate a connection code. And this connection code is one that you can then insert inside of your own Wowza Streaming Engine to push your stream up into the cloud. And just like that, you can create the connection and push up to Wowza Streaming Cloud and be able to then scale that to a large audience. So that's kind of a quick walkthrough of exactly how the product works and how you can scale that with this CDN. One of the challenges of universities too is a pay-as-you-go model is great for usage where you don't know every month, but there's also the challenge of you have a annual budget that you have to bill by. So with the Wowza Streaming Cloud CDN, you can pre-purchase a block of CDN bandwidth, and of course the more you purchase, the cheaper it gets. But the rates that we have are actually very competitive with what you could get, or they're more affordable than what you could get with going to Akamai directly, because what Wowza has done is pre-purchase a very large volume of that for all of our customers, and then we're able to kind of share that savings on to MEDIAL end users as well. So that's one workflow. I will send some links to Rob to share with you guys as well if you guys are interested in the step-by-step and kind of the deeper, kind of more deep dive tech side of it. We have different tutorials on how we can do that and the overview of it. But I just wanted to give you kind of a quick view of exactly how it works on the technology side from a workflow perspective. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on was kind of something that's a little bit more exciting. CDN is fantastic and it's needed for scalability, but it is quite boring in essence. So one of the cool things that we've been working on is virtual reality and 360-degree streaming. So in this workflow, this page right here, I'll share this with Rob as well, this is a video that I recorded a couple of months ago showing it's about a 20-minute demo showing step by step all of the pieces needed to actually connect a 360 camera to Wowza and to MEDIAL and then be able to stream that out to an end user and to an end client. So as you can see in this picture here, this camera is actually a gyroptic camera. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull up these slides that I have where we can talk a little bit, or I can show you the specific camera itself. So these slides are taken from a presentation that I did at Streaming Media East in New York back in May. So Wowza works very closely with encoders, camera manufacturers, a lot of the major players in the industry, and it allows us to get our hands on products before they're even out on the market. So I did this session in anticipation of the growth of virtual reality and 360. And how it works is with 360 cameras, there are pretty much 3 different workflows depending on which camera or encoder you end up choosing. One of the popular ones we've seen in the last couple of years is using a camera system with a rig of some kind. So these could be more typically GoPros or something similar. And all of those are connected to a separate laptop or a separate computer that have connections. So these would be mini HDMI to HDMI, and then the device itself would have capture cards to capture all of this content. You would have the stitching software that runs on the laptop or on the computer, which more typically is called Vahana, VR software. And that would stitch together all those different feeds. It could be 4 cameras or 6 cameras or however many you want. Encode those together, stitch them, and then push that over RTMP into a Wowza server. And that Wowza server could be one that's running MEDIAL. So MEDIAL can ingest that. We can support that resolution that can enable 360 streaming. And then you can once again scale that, either deliver it locally within your own university or scale that to the cloud to push that to clients on different devices. And this is really one of the major headaches, and one of the reasons that the MEDIAL team has had this working. We've been working, they've been waiting on actually JW Player to come out with their 360 player. So hopefully we can have that enabled soon within in the Medial product as soon as JW Player comes out with a full release. And what that needs is you need the client, the playback device, the player device to actually enable the 360 functionality. And I'll show you exactly what that looks like here in just a sec. We also work with another vendor called NextPlayer that can enable mobile playback to mobile devices. So that's another option as well. And then there is also the ability to use specific headsets. We work closely with Facebook that owns Oculus, and Oculus is doing a lot of development in the headset space. So we do a lot of VR and 360 workflow demos with headsets as well. So to give you a couple of examples of camera rigs, this is a 4-camera rig with GoPros. The problem with a rig like this is that if you've ever used a GoPro, it has a mini HDMI connection. You would need a adapter to go to HDMI, and then you would need a separate capture device to capture that inside of the laptop or inside the computer itself. So it can be quite a bit of equipment that's needed. These devices, these MEDIAL devices, are great devices for capturing HDMI 3 natively and then HDMI natively and converting it to USB 3 to plug into a laptop, let's say a MacBook Pro or some other laptop with USB. MEDIAL also makes these cards that can be put inside of a workstation or a server that would enable you to have up to 4 concurrent, and then of course if you have 2 cards you could have 8 concurrent captures that could be pulled into that stitching software. So these are kind of the hardware components needed to capture that HDMI signal and encode it into the device that's going to be doing the processing. You know, we've worked with some high-end vendors. This is, of course, super high-end with these RED cameras. Each of these is I think, about 20 grand. So you can imagine what this rig costs. But this is some of what's happening at the very, very major film studio level with some of the 360 capture. And then, of course, you get some very, very, large devices like this. You can imagine the amount of hardware that needs to run. This would be a huge headache with all the cables that would be coming out of a device like that. And those are really the pain points. So the pain points are all these different dongles and cables and everything that you need to be able to do the capturing. You can have issues with overheating and so on. So one of the vendors that we're working with is called Video Stitch. They came into the 360 space, the VR space, by creating the software itself, which is called Vahana. And what they've done now is they've taken it a step further and they've actually developed their own camera called the Aura. And the Aura is a 4-camera device that will actually encode on a separate stitching box. So it will capture the content, it will have this stitching box that's running their own software, and then from this box it will push RTMP into Wowza that can then grab that signal and be able to restream that on and change the playback URL or the playback protocol for different devices. And this is exactly what Vahana looks like. So here in this example, these are 6 cameras that are all being pulled in together. You can stitch them together, you can adjust them, and then of course push out one stitched together feed that can be either recorded for VOD or be pushed to Wowza's RTMP for live. And this is exactly what the workflow looks like. So here's the Aura device. It's being sent, those 4 cameras are being sent into the Vahana software, stitching it together, encoding it to RTMP. Wowza takes that in, and then we can transcode to send out an adaptive bitrate stream. And just to touch on ABR, what ABR is the ability to send multiple bit rates and resolutions to different clients. So it could be let's say an iPhone, you're on a 3G connection, you might be viewing a lower bit rate, right? Instead of viewing a 1080p high-end bit rate that you don't have the bandwidth to play back. So Wowza enables this ABR functionality, and it's something that MEDIAL has also been developing inside of the product, is actually enabling that adaptive bitrate functionality that's, I believe, on their roadmap as well. And ABR is essential for VR streaming, because if you're streaming over the public internet, if you send a 4K, let's say 6 megabit per second stream to a client that's on a 3G, it's just going to sit there and buffer. So having a lower end rendition is needed to be able to ensure good quality playback and a good user experience for the end user. And this is the device that I have in the demo that I showed, or the page that I had. The cool thing about the Diroptic, the price point for this is about $750 US for both the camera itself, which has 3 cameras, plus there's a box that sits underneath it that enables power over Ethernet. So it ends up being an IP camera. The great thing about the Diroptic camera is that it's a good price point. It's somewhat affordable. For under $1,000, you can get up and running and started with your own VR camera. And just to kind of go back a couple of slides, the Aura, I believe, is at $2,000, if I remember correctly, for the Aura device. The gyroptic, I would say the resolution's a little bit on the lower end, so it's not going to be as crisp and nice as the Aura, but it is a good starting point getting into VR and 360 streaming. And the great thing is that all of that happens on the device itself. It does get quite warm, but it's been quite reliable in our test and what we've done with them. So you don't need a separate stitching box. The power over Ethernet sends the stream into Wowza, and just like that, you can get up and running. So quite an easy way to get it started with VR. And then Teradek is another Wowza partner. They make products like the Cube and the Video. This is the Teradek Sphere, which is a box that actually does the stitching. And this allows you to do 4 concurrent cameras. The great thing about this is that it's agnostic. You can use whatever device that you want to do the capture. So you can use your own GoPros or your own cameras that you have in-house to be able to capture those signals. And then this is the company that we're working for called NextPlayer. They create an SDK for mobile devices, for iPhones and Android devices. So this allows you to push, and in the demo that I showed, I actually show a demo on the iPhone. They have a really great player to be able to enable functionality and playback to mobile devices. So just to kind of touch on the playback side of it, that's a key part to enabling a good 360 and VR experience. And I mentioned that with Wowza and MEDIAL, we've done the integration already. We've really been waiting on the client side to actually integrate the functionality. And JW Player, that is the player that's integrated. They're the world's most deployed player. MEDIAL has integrated them into their product. They have just come out with their 360. I think it's still in beta, but it is now available within JW Player. So as you can see here, this is a VOD stream, and you can use your mouse to kind of pan around inside of this. So with a Aura device or a gyroptic device, you could be doing this live, pulling in, stitching in, and give you the ability to create this playback experience inside an HTML5 browser or a Flash player. I actually don't know, and Rob might be able to help me out here, I don't know if they have a mobile player yet. So if you do want to enable playback to an iPhone or an Android device, I don't know if JW Player has this enabled. And I'll pause this real quick because this poor little deer gets killed in this VOD. It's actually quite. If I show you this, I'm like, they couldn't have chosen a better cartoon. Look at this. He tries to make it past the train and he gets wiped out. Like how morbid is that? That's terrible. Anyway. So Rob, on your end, have you heard from the JW team if they have a mobile? Okay. Okay, perfect. And if you guys do want to see the virtual reality video, this is on our YouTube site and also on wowza.com under our VR section. If I show you real quick, I'll just play this back. In here, I do show exactly what that looks like. So I share my phone to screen, kind of like Rob does in his demos. So where I can reflect my phone and show you the real experience. The cool thing there is that you can use kind of a cheap Google Cardboard and be able to play that back. You can use your finger, so you can do it both as a VR headset type experience as well as using your finger or moving the camera around or moving the mobile device around. It's quite an elegant player for those purposes. So, the biggest question I get VR, before I move to the next subject, the biggest question I get with VR and 360 streaming is, yes, this is all cool, but what is the true value in this? Is it just, is it cool for the sake of being cool, or is there a true intrinsic value to it? So I'll give you a couple of use cases at the EDU level that we've seen where this has actually been truly valuable. One of them is we work with Duke University in the U.S. They're based in Durham, North Carolina, and they have one of the most prestigious medical programs in all of the U.S. And they've been using Wowza for, I think, 6 or 7 years, so quite a while. And they were making inroads into VR and 360 streaming even 2 or 3 years ago. And what they wanted to do is they actually do have other universities that do courses and enable students to be in their medical room live. So it's a learning university. The patient has given the rights for them to be used for educational purposes. They will live stream, and they have a service where they charge other universities to actually engage. So they're trying to create value in their product. So these students, what they were noticing is even with high resolution cameras, students were missing out on particular parts of the surgery. So they wanted the students and professors in remote campuses to have control over what part of the surgery they wanted to see. So they put a gyroptic, or it wasn't a gyroptic, it was actually a GoPro rig on top of the surgery, right next to the light that sits above, and it completely enabled the student to put the control inside there for both live and for VOD streaming. And that was a workflow that we've actually seen been very successful. The other one has been for sports. And now sports isn't quite as big in maybe the UK, but in America it's quite a large as part of the college system and the university system. And 360 has been quite an engaging experience for those purposes as well. The other one I might say is for live events. So if you're doing concerts or you're doing guest speakers, sometimes having a secondary camera as a second screen experience can be a very engaging method of getting more people to attend an event or engaging with the event more. So those are all kind of examples of exactly 360 workflows that I've seen through our EDU customers. Now I want to be conscious of time, Rob. Do you want me to touch on a couple of other things, or are we running up against it? Okay. So we talked a little bit about things that MEDIAL and Wowza have been working on concurrently that are in the mix that should be coming out very soon within their product. There's also a couple of other things looking at our roadmap that I kind of wanted to whet the appetite and give you guys a view as to what Wowza is looking at going into the future. And MEDIAL has done a great job of they've created the Media Live app that enables mobile encoding. They also have, and I apologize, I forgot the name of it, Rob, the screen capture tool that you guys have available as well. Yeah, Media Lecture, which is a fantastic tool to be able to capture and encode and push content and record content. One of the things that we're looking to enable is Wowza tries to be technology agnostic, and one of the technologies that has really made headway in the last few years has been WebRTC. And WebRTC is it all started with Google buying out a company called On2 that makes the VP8, VP9 codecs. And what they ended up doing is they ended up implementing that codec natively inside the browser, inside of Google Chrome, and then other browsers like Firefox, Microsoft Edge have enabled that same functionality because they see the value in it. And the idea of WebRTC is that instead of using a camera and an encoder or a separate encoding device, you are using the browser's natively, the media source extensions in the browser to encode and decode content without having to use a separate encoder. It's all done at the software level inside the browser itself. And this is a very powerful tool. If you guys, just to kind of make this very simple, if you've ever used Google Hangouts, which is the free kind of chat application that Google has enabled, that is completely 100% built on WebRTC as an open standard. And it is truly an open source standard. There's no cost to it. There's no development involved. It can be implemented extremely easy inside browsers without the need for a separate plugin. And that's really the key is, the streaming in the industry has been really brought to the masses through Flash. And Flash has been around. It's been a great technology for the last 10 years, but it truly is dead. It's going away. It's gone away. And at the university level, at the enterprise level, a lot of IT departments, it's a headache for them to want to do that because of security risks, right? And that's the reason they've pulled Flash from a lot of large enterprise deployments and EDU deployments. So using a native technology that's already inside the browser that people use every day is a very powerful workflow. So what Wowza has done is we've actually implemented WebRTC as a way to capture content into Wowza and also play back content from Wowza. Now you might be asking, well, WebRTC, why do I need Wowza and why do I need MEDIAL? Well, with MEDIAL, you definitely need a user interface that sits around a product like this, right? That integrates with your CMS system, that integrates with your LCMS, and that's where MEDIAL can truly add a lot of value. From the Wowza side, where we can add value is WebRTC can be used just natively within Chrome to talk one-to-one or one-to-a-few. But to actually scale that and do that to one-to-many or many-to-one, you need to put in a media server in the middle of that workflow. The other problem becomes if you want to reach a variety of different devices. So if you want to reach a variety of different users, some who may be on mobile phones, not all of those have adopted WebRTC. So putting Wowza in the middle creates a universal translator for being able to talk between different protocols and different devices. And that's really where that MEDIAL being built on top of that creates it. So, Rob and his team and his engineering team have already been playing with WebRTC as part of our preview for the last, probably for the last year actually. And we're hoping that something will come inside the product here in the next few months, in the next year, that will enable this functionality natively inside the browser. And I'll leave it at that. I could go into a lot more detail, but I can pass the information to Rob as well. We have a video here from our CTO, Charlie, who talks about WebRTC and gives you kind of a quick overview of exactly what's involved and the kind of workflows that it can truly enable. And that's it. I could talk a little bit, Rob, about adaptive bitrate. I don't know if that's something that you've been talking about. I know you guys have been working on developing or integrating that into the MEDIAL product as well with Wowza, of course, running behind the scenes. But let me know. I don't know how we are on time. We could. One of the workflows, and WebRTC kind of fits into this a little bit, is Wowza has developed its own player. And the reason for this is we saw kind of an opportunity in the industry. And actually, let me pull up the player URL itself. So, we work hand in hand with JW Player. They're one of our industry partners, and we'll never have a fully featured player like JW has. I mean, they have some amazing functionality, chapterization, integration with vendors like MEDIAL. But what we did notice is that in the industry right now, there isn't a true low latent solution where it's an alternative to RTMP to Flash. So what Wowza is trying to do is we're working on, we needed to own the player piece and the client playback. So it could be the mobile devices or browsers. We needed to have that piece as part of our ecosystem to enable true native playback and low latent playback end to end. So all the way from Wowza GoCoder or from an encoder through Wowza delivery to the player. So with this Wowza player, and this is something that Rob and his team are definitely playing around with, we are going to have an API available next year that will allow integrators and developers like MEDIAL to build on top of this. But of course, Rob, you and your team have deep integration with JW already. So a lot of that comes down to exactly where the right roadmap fits in between the products. But with Wowza Player, it's always going to be a free player that's going to be available. And especially for a customer like MEDIAL, where they already integrate with the Wowza server, it's a free player available inside the product. The thing that we're extremely excited about between now and NAB, which is in April next year, is we are going to come out with this low latent workflow, and that will enable, as you guys may know, with using streaming protocols like Apple HLS, MPEG-, these are all HTTP protocols that have inherent latency with the protocol itself. With enabling the WOWS protocol, which sits at the core of our product, it will enable you to deliver WOWS all the way to the browser, which will create end-to-end under a second of latency in some of our tests. So that truly is going to be a better workflow for developing real-time chat applications between users and things like that. So that we're quite excited about, and the Wowza player is a key component of that.